Sparks legend Candace Parker retires, which makes you wonder about the future of the WNBA, and for that matter, Caitlin Clark. Scribes are weighing in on both the Rams and Chargers drafts, and UCLA football embraces having fans again. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos morning report. So, it is April 29th, 2024. I am in St. Loser misery for about another couple of hours, and then I'll be flying home to be with the wife and the blouse of the blessed abundance. But until we do that, let's start off the week right and talk a little LA sports. And if you like being in the know about LA, clickety-clack the like button, clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It lets you know we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist, and by all means, comment. By the way, we added a new subscriber to the Angeleno Familia yesterday. Thank you for getting in on the ground floor. Before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard. The Clippers blew a 31-point lead. 31. And thanks to James Harden's late game heroics, they wound up pulling out a 116-111 victory over Dallas. The best of 7 series is tied 2-2. Paul George led the Clippers with 33 points. Kawhi Leonard did not play. Game 5 is going to shift over to LA on Wednesday night. Meanwhile, over in LA, Dave Riddich started instead of Cam Talbot in net, and he only conceded 1 time to Edmonton. And that was enough. The Oilers beat the Kings 1-0. Edmonton now leads the best of 7 series, 3-1. Game 5 shifts back to Edmonton on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Toronto defeated the Dodgers 3-1. That snapped a 6-game win streak. Michael Grove allowed 3 runs in relief to take the loss. Freddie Freeman hit a home run for the Dodgers. Meanwhile, today, the Dodgers, they are flying all the way to Arizona to play at 6:40 tonight. James Paxton is 2-0 with a 2.61 ERA. Tommy Henry is 1-1 with a 5.55 ERA. And the Lakers are at Denver at 7. Game 5 with Denver leading the best of 7 series 3-1. The Lakers have led. If you want to know how frustrating this series has been, the Lakers have led for 136 of the 192 minutes in the series, and that they were only managing to get it done once. Now let's get to the news. I know that the NFL draft was over the weekend. We've talked a lot about the NFL draft, and we will in a couple of moments, but I want to shift gears because this topic actually struck a nerve with me. Candace Parker, who played 12 years for the Sparks and is in the argument for the greatest WNBA player of all time, retired Sunday after a 16-year career. She won titles with 3 different WNBA teams, including the Sparks. She's a 2-time MVP. She earned one of those MVPs as a rookie, also got Rookie of the Year last year. And by the way, she was the #1 draft pick that year as well by the Sparks. After a falling out with former Sparks coach Derek Fisher, she was traded away. She won titles in Chicago and Las Vegas. She also won multiple titles as a collegian for Tennessee. Her scoring average per game is more than 20 points. It's the 2nd all-time in league history. And in her prime, she could dunk. And not just 1 time either. She dunked more than once. And it's easy to crack jokes about the WNBA, but she leaves the game with the respect of both the men and the women who have played at a high level. So why does that matter to me? Because training camp opened for the Sparks, and it was also noted that the Sparks are going to open their season in Long Beach. Not 1 home game either, but 5. The reason I bring up all of that with Candace Parker's career is I am left asking if the WNBA will ever be important. Ever. I'm not trying to clown women's basketball at all when I say it. If you are an important team, you are not being moved out of Crypto.com arena to play at the Pyramid in Long Beach. Right? Look, I love soccer. If you have watched this program regularly, you know that. Soccer is far from the biggest sport in the United States, but at least those teams, almost all of them in MLS, have their own stadiums. This is the equivalent of saying LAFC needs to play over at Long Beach Poly. That's how crazy it is to me. Or the LA Galaxy to play at Cal Poly Pomona. And why is this happening? It's because of construction work over at Crypto.com Arena. Here's the problem that the Sparks will face. You're still, after decades, trying to build a fan base, and your fan base doesn't even know if they're driving to LA, driving to Long Beach, driving to Fullerton for all we know, driving to Escondido. So despite Candace Parker's talent, which she has, we have to be asking ourselves, would any of us really miss the WNBA if it didn't exist? A couple of weeks ago, player pay in the WNBA was this cause célèbre on the Twitters. It was all about, oh, why can't Caitlin Clark make what LeBron James makes? Which is, of course, an idiotic question, but it was asked. You know, why can't Brittany Griner get paid like Joel Embiid? And what I will say in this, in Embiid's case, at least we didn't have to rescue him from a Russian gulag. But that's not the point either. The point is, back then, when Candace Parker was a rookie, she was Caitlin Clark. There was hype for Parker, lots of it. She gets drafted by the Sparks. They're the marquee franchise of that little league. She held up her end of the bargain, by the way. She didn't suck. She played great basketball for 16 bleeping years. And yet the last season, the highest drawing WNBA team averaged 9,500 fans a game. The low end was Washington at 4,300. So it begs the question, can any female capture the imagination of the country to fill WNBA stadiums, arenas regularly? Because women's soccer is outdrawing women's basketball, right? I mentioned a few moments ago how much I love soccer. I'm not stupid. I know it's not as popular as the NFL, but women's soccer outdraws the WNBA, and the NWSL was founded 16 years ago after the NBA. The WNBA had a 16-year head start. So why is this happening? The best I can say is fans. You can't blame the fans. Fans will pay to see you perform, but you have to be wowing your fans. Where is the wow factor in the WNBA? You had a little bit of wow factor with Candace Parker. It makes us go back to things like, what impresses you in hoops? Dunking. Candace Parker could dunk. She didn't do it every game. It's such a rare occurrence that you can't expect to be wowed when you go to see the WNBA. If a product can make me say wow, but the other one can't, I'm paying for this one. And by the way, there is no such thing as a clip of Caitlin Clark dunking. So she has to ball like Steph Curry, just raining in threes from all over the court. Possibly. So if you want to know why there's pay inequity in the WNBA, if that's what you're tweeting about, that's the reason why. And you still have to wonder if there will ever be a difference maker in the league, because I don't think it's going to be Caitlin Clark for long. And that's the memo. Now, let's get back to the NFL draft. Thanks for letting me air that one out of my system. I'm a little fearful when I agree with Scribes too much. Having been one, I'm not a big fan of groupthink, but it brings me to the Rams draft because virtually every scribe I'm coming across agrees this was a solid draft with strong, talented players. Even when you consider that the day 3 picks, you could say, well, you know, maybe not all of them are going to make an impact, but they definitely resolved the kicking problems with Joshua Carty of Stanford. The primary objective that the Rams had going into the draft, they reached. The idea was, how can we do our best to replace the production of Aaron Donald? We are not going to get it in one person, but can we get it in the aggregate? A couple of people who could play at once. The Rams did that by rebuilding their entire defensive line. And by the way, the entire defensive line is extremely young, first and second year players. Before, when Donald was there, the Rams just had a strong defensive front with him on their own. Now they're basically trying to rebuild I wouldn't say a fearsome foursome, but something along those lines. Jared Verse as a defensive end rushing on one side, Byron Young rushing at the other end, and in the middle you have either Braden Fisk or second-year player Kobe Turner. All four of those young men can accomplish good things for the Rams. And then you're asking, well, what else did they accomplish? If Kyron Williams gets injured again, you have Blake Corum filling in the hole at running back. And they don't have to reinvent their offense. They can just plug and play them. Again, not all of these Rams draft picks are holy crap level, but they all perform at a high level. Typical draft for Les Snead. Matter of fact, if you take a peek at all the Rams defensive draft charts, the turnover is actually breathtaking. Take a look at their depth chart now. Potentially 2 new starters on the defensive line in Verse and Fisk. 4 of the 5 defensive backs are different from last year. The only holdover being Quinton Lake. And yet, if you look at that defense, you should feel kind of confident about what they could do. Super Bowl caliber, not going there. Confident? Yeah. I will also add, when I'm about to start to talk about the Chargers, that I'm hopeful I don't have to talk about the NFL draft for a while, by the way. The Chargers, I thought, had a not quite perfect draft. I think that tackle Joe Alt is a fine prospect, but maybe the Bolts shot themselves in the foot by not trading down so that they could have solved multiple problems. And once again, the Scribes are agreeing with me, which makes me wonder if I'm wrong. But the lowest grade for the Chargers draft came from CBS. They gave them a B-, which is kind of alarming. So I took a second peek. The Scribe did not like the 2 cornerbacks that the Chargers took in the 5th round, and said that another problem is that the Chargers took 2 wide receivers in the 7th round, including USC's Brendan Rice, but both of those receivers are technically the same guy. They each have the same skill set. So I can't really argue with that critique. It's a fair critique to make. But what I can tell you is that the Chargers' primary objective was to at least hit on 3 starters with their first 3 picks. And they did that, including 2 in positions of need: wide receiver Ladd McConkey and linebacker Junior Colson. So I don't know if I would give them a B-, but I still believe the Chargers had a better draft than some of the Scribes will grant them. So if you're not drafted, you could still get signed by an NFL team as a free agent. 3 UCLA Bruins have been signed by NFL teams. That would be linebacker Carl Jones Jr. to Chicago, offensive lineman Duke Clemens to Detroit, and running back Carson Steele to Kansas City. Also for the Bruins, though, more than 11,000 people went to the Rose Bowl for UCLA's first spring game in many years. Aside from it being just nice to see the program, give half of a poop about their fan base, the LA Times had noted a couple of things about the way the Bruins are running their offense. Wide receiver Titus Makayao Atamalala may be their top receiver. And by the way, 3 offensive linemen have been shuffled to different positions. The offensive line is apparently in flux because they will have 2 new linemen coming in through the portal. A guard from UNLV, Alani Makahele, and tackle Ruben Unije from Louisville. Meanwhile, over at USC, center Justin Dedich has signed with the Rams as an undrafted free agent. Running back Austin Jones is going to Washington as an undrafted free agent. The Trojans are also getting somebody in the transfer portal. Wide receiver Jay Fair is transferring from Auburn. He was a 3-star prospect from the Dallas area. He only caught 2 passes as a freshman, but that spiked to 31 as a sophomore. He is a speed guy that you would expect to see lining up in the slot. Now, USC lost 3 receivers since last season ended. He joins Kyle Ford as 2 wideouts coming in from the transfer portal to play for USC. Also for USC, as they say in the military, I know what I do not know. I do not know college women's basketball. I'm not going to clown it, just like I won't clown the WNBA. But I mean, for Pete's sake, at some point, you've got to winnow out some sports and not watch, so you can go touch the grass. But I would be remiss if I did not include that USC women's basketball has landed arguably the best player in the game via the transfer portal in Kiki Irefan. She comes from Stanford, and in the NCAA tournament dropped 41 points in a game against Iowa State. She's a forward, so you have her, you team her up with guard Juju Watkins, and you have a pretty nice inside-out game for next season. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Do you believe that there is any hope for the WNBA? How do you grade the Rams or Chargers drafts? And if you enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Can Corte El Queso production. Take care.